Alice was a troubled young woman, haunted by the demons of her past. She had a difficult childhood, filled with neglect and abuse, which left deep scars on her psyche. As she grew older, her mind became more and more unstable, and she retreated into a world of her own making, a world of magic and wonder, inspired by the stories she had read as a child. One day, while wandering through the woods, Alice stumbled upon a rabbit hole. Without thinking, she climbed down into it, and found herself in a strange and eerie place, where nothing was as it seemed. The world was filled with bizarre creatures, talking animals, and impossible landscapes, and Alice was both fascinated and terrified by it all. As she explored this strange land, Alice encountered a series of surreal and disturbing characters. There was the Cheshire Cat, a grinning feline with razor-sharp teeth, who taunted and teased her with his cryptic remarks.
"Why, hello there, little Alice,"
said the Cheshire Cat, his eyes gleaming in the darkness.
"What brings you to this neck of the woods?"
I don't know,
stammered Alice, feeling a cold sweat break out on her brow.
"Oh, that's right.
Said the cat, licking his lips hungrily.
You're lost, aren't you? Well, don't worry. I'm sure you'll find your way, eventually."
There was the Queen of Hearts, a tyrannical ruler who ordered the executions of her subjects at the slightest provocation.
"Off with her head!"
screamed the Queen of Hearts, pointing a blood-stained finger at Alice.
"How dare she disobey my orders?"
but Your Majesty,
pleaded Alice, her voice trembling with fear.
I didn't mean to offend you. I was just...
"Silence!"
roared the Queen, her face contorted with rage.
"I won't have insolence in my court! Guards, take her away!"
And there was the Mad Hatter, a deranged lunatic who invited Alice to a gruesome tea party, where the guests were all decapitated heads.
Welcome! Welcome! Dear Alice,
said the Mad Hatter, grinning madly as he poured her a cup of tea.
do make yourself comfortable. We're just getting started.
"What? What is this?"
asked Alice, her eyes widening in horror as she saw the severed heads on the table.
Why, it's tea party, my dear,
said the Mad Hatter, his voice laced with insanity.
Aren't you thrilled?
Alice tried to make sense of it all, but the more she tried, the more confused she became. The world of Wonderland was like a nightmare that she couldn't wake up from, and every new encounter only added to her sense of dread and disorientation. But as Alice delved deeper into this twisted realm, she began to realize something disturbing. The creatures she met, the places she visited, and the events she witnessed were not real. They were all figments of her own imagination, manifestations of her own delusions and psychosis. In reality, Alice was not in Wonderland at all. She was still in the woods, lost and alone, and her mind had conjured up this fantasy world as a way of coping with her own trauma and pain. But instead of finding solace and escape, Alice's delusions had driven her to madness, and now she was trapped in a terrifying world of her own making. As Alice came to this realization, her grip on reality began to slip even further. She started to hear voices in her head, urging her to do terrible things. She saw visions of blood and violence, and felt an uncontrollable urge to act on them. And so, in a fit of insanity, Alice began to commit acts of unspeakable horror. She attacked the creatures of Wonderland, mutilating and dismembering them with a ferocity that terrified even herself. She set fire to the Queen's palace, watching gleefully as the flames consumed everything in their path. And in her most horrifying act, she killed the Mad Hatter, cutting off his head and using it as a trophy. In the end, Alice was found by a group of travelers who were passing through the woods. They were horrified by what they saw, and called for the authorities to take her away. Alice was taken to a mental institution, where she spent the rest of her life, haunted by the memories of her time in Wonderland, and tormented by the voices in her head. But even in death, Alice's legacy lived on. The story of her descent into madness and violence became a cautionary tale, warning others of the dangers of losing oneself in delusion and fantasy. And the world of Wonderland, once seen as a place of magic and wonder, became a symbol of the horrors that lurked in the human mind.